Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Human Services will come to order. Welcome, everyone. I note that a quorum is present. The subcommittee is meeting today to hear testimony on food for thought, examining federal nutrition programs for young children and infants. This is an entirely remote hearing, and as such, the committee's hearing room is officially closed. All microphones will be kept muted as a general rule to avoid unnecessary background noise. Members and witnesses will be responsible for unmuting themselves when they are recognized to speak or when they wish to seek recognition. If a member or witness experiences technical difficulties during the hearing, please stay connected on the platform. Make sure you are muted and use your phone to immediately call the committee's IT director, whose number was provided in advance. Should the chair experience technical difficulty or need to step away, Mrs. Hayes or another majority member is hereby authorized to assume the gavel in the chair's absence. To ensure that the committee's 5-minute rule is adhered to, staff will be keeping track of time and using the committee's remote timer. The remote timer appears in its own thumbnail and will show a blinking light when time has expired. Members and witnesses are asked to wrap up promptly when their time has expired. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, opening statements are limited to the chair and ranking member, and I recognize myself now for the purpose of making an opening statement. Today, we are meeting to examine federal nutrition programs that support young children and to discuss our opportunity and, in fact, our responsibility to give all children a healthy start in life. This hearing will focus on 2 key programs: the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, which serves low-income parents and children, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or CACFP, which serves children and adults in after-school and care settings. For decades, these programs have been essential to the healthy development and long-term success of millions of children. Each month, WIC provides about 6 million people, including more than half of all infants, with access to tailored nutrition counseling, healthy food prescriptions, breastfeeding support, and health screenings and referrals. The Child and Adult Care Food Program provides the millions of children and adults in childcare and daycare centers across the country with healthy meals and snacks. But the full effects of these federal nutrition initiatives cannot be understood through numbers alone. In my home state of Oregon, I've seen firsthand the meaningful difference these programs make in the lives of our constituents. The Oregon Child Development Coalition, OCDC, provides childcare, education, and nutrition services to more than 4,000 children across the state. In 2009, a study analyzing the benefits and areas for improvement of CACFP found that parents rely on the nutrition education and the healthy food provided for their families through the OCDC, giving parents more confidence even as prices of food and housing rise. Providers who were interviewed focused on the need to support more children by removing administrative barriers. An updated CACFP will allow providers like OCDC to continue care and make sure that more children in need can access nutritious foods without raising their prices. This is just one example of the critical role federal programs play in connecting young children and families with healthy food and vital health services. And despite these successes, we know that child hunger, malnutrition, and inadequate access to care persists in many of our communities, particularly in the aftermath of COVID-19. Approximately 1 in 3 households with children struggled with food insecurity during the early stages of the pandemic. For households with young children, the lack of access was even worse. Within the first weeks of the pandemic, nearly half of all mothers with young children faced food insecurity.
Thank you for your patience, Madam Chair. The stream has been confirmed that it's back up.
All right, so we will reconvene and I will go back to the place and just finish the end of my opening statement, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Fulcher. Today, with the help of our distinguished witnesses, we will discuss the next steps we must take for the goal of ending hunger. For example, as we work to reauthorize federal child nutrition laws, we must modernize and expand both WIC and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. We can invest in updated technology to eliminate barriers that still prevent families from accessing WIC's life-changing benefits. And we can expand the number of meals covered by the Child and Adult Care Food Program, as well as simplify program administration so more care providers can participate. In addition, future legislative packages must include significant investments in WIC and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. I applaud President Biden's commitment in the American Families Plan to expand affordable, accessible childcare. With any investment to expand and strengthen the care economy, corresponding investments must be provided for early childhood nutrition programs. And as we invest in our physical and human infrastructure, basic nutrition support for young children must be a top priority. I hope today's discussion will lay a strong foundation for our continued work to make certain that all children and infants have the nutrition they need to succeed. I want to thank our witnesses again, and I now yield to the ranking member, Mr. Fulcher, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Young children in nursing or expecting mothers need adequate nutrition. The better the nutritional status, the more likely both child and mother will have safer pregnancies, stronger immune systems, and longer lives. We also know that good access to food leads to more productive learning environments. That's why federal nutrition programs date back to the 1940s. There's a national interest in supporting a healthy baseline for future generations. There's also a critical role for private partners, including religious and other nonprofit entities, to help provide these services to people. We saw this last year as we dealt with COVID-19. Today, the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act and the Child Nutrition Act authorize both the Special Supplemental Nutritional Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or CACFP. These programs help provide nutrition services to vulnerable women and children. Through WIC, the federal government provides funding to states for the purpose of assisting low-income women who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or have children up to the age of 5. State agencies work with tens of thousands of authorized retailers so these vulnerable mothers can purchase certain foods such as fruits, vegetables, milk, whole grains, cereal, juice, and eggs. CACFP, on the other hand, reimburses meals or snacks served in eligible child care centers, daycare, homes, and adult daycare centers. In fiscal 2019, almost 5 million children and adults from low-income households benefited daily from the program. Last year, Congress appropriated over $25 billion in taxpayer dollars for federal child nutrition programs. Congress acted quickly on the onset of COVID-19 pandemic to help millions of vulnerable people keep access to this nutritional lifeline. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act boosted WIC funding and allowed the USDA to grant flexibility waivers from certain requirements. Pandemic-related emergency actions helped ensure these vulnerable populations maintain access to these nutrition services. These programs and more continue to operate because of executive action. While appropriate last year, the facts on the ground are not the same. Operation Warp Speed has done its job, and life is returning to normal for most Americans. It's time for Congress to be wise stewards of taxpayer money by reinstating the statutory and regulatory system. With any government program, particularly one that costs tens of billions of dollars a year, we must carefully balance how to administer the program without exposing taxpayers to waste or abuse. Republicans support good government solutions to prevent waste and improve recipients' interaction with the child nutrition programs. Government programs too often encumber participants with unnecessary hurdles and archaic processes. Needy families deserve a seamless experience. I look forward to hearing from today's witnesses on how best Congress can strike the right balance when we reauthorize the child nutrition programs. My instinct tells me that industry partners can help Congress deliver on the promise of WIC and CACFP. The federal government is out of touch with how to help families access the nutrition programs available to them. Congress must work with these entities to help disadvantaged Americans get the nutrition they need to thrive. Any reauthorization of the child nutrition programs must leverage the knowledge and experience of local partners because they know what works best for the vulnerable people we hope to serve. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Fulcher. Without objection, all other members who wish to insert written statements into the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically in Microsoft Word format by 5 p.m. on August 11th, 2021. I will now introduce the witnesses. Teresa Turner is a school nutrition specialist and registered dietitian. She serves as the Army Child and Youth Services nutritionist at Fort Meade. Next, we have Paula Garrett, a registered dietitian. She serves as the state WIC director for the Virginia Department of Health and a member of the board of directors for the National WIC Association. Trevor Farrell is senior vice president and chief commercial officer Americas at Schreiber US. And Jessica Burris is a WIC breastfeeding peer counselor with the Montgomery County, North Carolina Department of Health and a mother of 3 whose children were able to get a healthy start in life through WIC. We appreciate the witnesses for participating today, and we look forward to your testimony. Your written statement will appear in full in the hearing record, and you're asked to limit your oral presentation to a 5-minute summary. After your presentation, we will move to member questions. The witnesses are aware of their responsibility to provide accurate information to the subcommittee, and therefore we will proceed with their testimony. I will first recognize Ms. Turner. Ms. Turner?
Thank you. Great morning. Chair Bonamici, Ranking Member Fulcher, committee members, and my fellow distinguished panelists. I am honored to have the opportunity to speak before you today. My name is Teresa Turner, and I am the nutritionist at U.S. Army Child and Youth Services at Fort Meade. I am also the current president of the Maryland Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, an affiliate of the National Academy, the world's largest organization of food and nutrition professionals, whom I am here representing today. We believe that providing well-balanced, nutritious meals and establishing early, healthy eating habits is critical to our country's current nutrition security crisis. We are particularly concerned about longstanding and ongoing racial and ethnic disparities, including those evidenced in and heightened by the pandemic. We believe that Congress has a great opportunity through the upcoming CNR to strengthen and critical nutrition programs like CACFP to address some of the root causes of these disparities. As a proud civilian employee of the U.S. Army, I believe strong federal programs are an investment in our country's health and in military preparedness. Today, I will share with you some of my experiences operating CACFP and discuss recommendations to improve the program by 1, allowing child care centers and homes the option of serving an additional meal, 2, streamlining program requirements, reducing paperwork, and maximizing technology to improve program access, and lastly, 3, providing adequate reimbursements and funding to cover the operating costs of providing healthy foods. I run the meal programs for 6 child and youth programs on base. During normal operating hours, I monitor roughly 300 employees and facilitate providing breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snack to children each day. I take immense pride in providing meals that are cooked from scratch and meet the high nutrition standards set forth by the CACFP. I know that my Army peers can feel good about leaving their children at our centers as they set out to serve our country. Like all child care facilities across the country, mine took a significant financial hit due to the pandemic. We were serving about 1,000 children a day and saw that number decrease to a mere 300 due to physical limitations of distance guidelines. We do not charge our parents for food, and the only way our program brings in revenue is by spaces filled and food reimbursements. The program's revenue fell significantly, but labor and fixed costs remained the same. I was appreciative of the funding from Congress that provided some relief for child care centers that lost money because of declining participation. Supply chain disruptions and increases in food and transportation expenses are also significant challenges. These additional costs have added even more of a financial burden onto my program, an issue my peers across Maryland and across the country are also experiencing. As much as the pandemic hit my bottom line, it also impacted the financial security of families. It is time to reinstate an additional meal or snack into CACFP, aligning with national child care standards, which specifically state that young children need to eat small, healthy meals and snacks throughout the day. My centers are typically open for a full day of care, and for children who are there 8+ hours, it is too long to go without having the recommended complement of meals and snacks. If programs were able to provide an additional meal, it would take some time and stress off of the parents. There is broad consensus that many child care homes and centers across the country are not participating in CACFP due to the inadequate benefits as well as burdensome paperwork. The Academy recommends streamlining program requirements, reducing paperwork, and maximizing technology to improve program access. The outdated requirement for parents to specify normal hours of daycare should be eliminated. This form limits when children can receive meals and snacks and is based on outdated assumptions that parents work regular and consistent hours. Many low-income families work a wide variety of shifts, which may change from week to week. Many states require forms to be updated with every change and creating paperwork burden for both the parents and the provider. Additionally, we are a compassionate reassignment, which means we also serve some children who have medical and behavioral challenges. Sometimes the child will not be available to eat the meal in the time indicated as our normal hours. When this happens, a child who may be receiving special care or unable to participate during regular meal service hours receives a meal that is not reimbursable. There are a number of small changes that can make administering the program easier. In addition, moving to annual eligibility for-profit child care centers would streamline program operations in many low-income areas. Lastly, we recommend increasing CACP reimbursements to make up for the increasing costs to transport, purchase, and prepare healthy foods. Food and transportation costs continue to rise, and purchasing healthy food items was already harder to access than less healthy food prior to the pandemic. The Academy believes that an increase in reimbursement is an investment in our children's health. We need to establish healthy habits at an early age to promote healthy behaviors and prevent obesity. We cannot afford to invest in raising healthy children. We cannot afford to not invest in raising healthy children. Thank you so much for your time today. I will be happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Turner. Next, we're going to hear from Ms. Garrett. Ms. Garrett, you're recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Chair Bonamici, Ranking Member Fulcher, Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Fox, and members of the House Education and Labor Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you about improvements to the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, WIC. My name is Paula Garrett, and I'm testifying today in my capacity as the Virginia State WIC Director and as a member of the Board of Directors for the National WIC Association, a national nonprofit organization representing 89 state WIC agencies, 12,000 frontline service provider agencies, and the 6.3 million mothers, infants, and young children that rely on WIC. WIC is an effective program that provides tailored nutrition education, healthy food, and support to pregnant and postpartum women and children aged up to 5. WIC's public health nutrition services help assure healthy pregnancies, healthy births, and a healthy start for young children. Every dollar spent on WIC returns $2.48 in healthcare savings, as healthier birth outcomes result in Medicaid savings. The WIC benefit, which addresses nutrient concerns, reduces child food insecurity. In 2009, changes to the WIC food packages introduced fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, resulting in improved child diet quality and increased availability of healthy foods in grocery stores. WIC's breastfeeding support has too made significant impacts on breastfeeding initiation rates among WIC infants. However, as of 2018, only 57% of eligible participants are receiving WIC services, and the program experienced declines in participation, partly attributed to structural barriers to access, suggesting opportunities to modernize and streamline WIC. Waiver authorities provided through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act allowed WIC agencies to safely administer services via video and phone. Since the pandemic, the Virginia WIC program has seen a 12% increase in participation. Remote appointments eliminate some common barriers to participation, such as transportation or time off of work, resulting in increased attendance and engagement of parents during appointments. Relaxing the physical presence requirement post-COVID to allow video and phone certification appointments while creating flexibility to issue benefits as families more conveniently schedule health assessments at either the WIC clinic or physician's offices would assure that WIC meets the realities of families. Remote options should not phase out certain health screenings, which are essential to WIC's public health nutrition mission. Facilitating two-way communication of health information between physicians and WIC clinics, extending certification to 2 years, and streamlining certification periods across participant categories would help reduce repetitive paperwork and testing, which often can deter ongoing participation. The extension of the postpartum eligibility 2 years well positions WIC to be part of the federal government's response to racial disparities in maternal health, particularly maternal mortality and morbidity among Black and Indigenous women. The Virginia Wic Program partnered with the Virginia Department of Social Services and the Virginia Department of Medical Assistance Services to conduct data matching through Medicaid, SNAP, and TANF, building federal partnerships within Medicaid and expanding adjunctive eligibility to include Head Start and the Children's Health Insurance Program and the Food Distribution Program on Indian reservations would support child retention in WIC and streamline certification. As state WIC agencies prioritize technologies and initiatives for a more modern, accessible WIC experience, funding is needed to support improvements to state management information systems. In the American Rescue Plan Act, Congress invested $880 million in WIC outreach, innovation, and program modernization, and temporarily increased WIC's fruit and vegetable benefit. This investment has been increasingly well received by Virginia's WIC families. Increasing the overall value of the WIC food package would support access to nutritious foods, program retention, and the shopping experience. During the pandemic, USDA was able to scale up SNAP's online shopping pilot, giving years of prior planning which WIC lacked, leaving WIC unable to adapt its complicated transactions and families without equitable shopping options. National online purchasing for WIC should be available no later than October 2024. The WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program, F&P, provides an annual benefit to WIC families to shop at local farmers markets. Increasing or eliminating the F&P annual benefit cap of $30 will further support healthy shopping options and local agriculture. Cost-efficient technologies and statutory change to electronically process WIC F&P and WIC EBT transactions at markets is necessary. Thank you for your attention to WIC's pivotal role in promoting maternal, infant, and child nutrition. I look forward to working with you to advance positive solutions that enhances WIC's public health impact.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Garrett. Mr.
you.
Farrell, you're recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bonamici and Ranking Member Fulcher, for inviting me to participate in this important hearing regarding the nutrition program for women, infants, and children. At Schreiber Foods, we strive to do good through food every day. We're a customer brand leader in shelf-stable beverages and yogurt, along with natural processed and cream cheese. With more than 9,000 employees and annual sales in excess of $5 billion, we partner with the best retailers, restaurants, distributors, and food manufacturers around the globe. That includes providing safe, delicious food like cheese and yogurt through WIC. As the House Education and Labor Committee begins to draft a child nutrition reauthorization bill, dairy companies like Schreiber ask you to ensure that WIC's supplemental food package includes varieties and package sizes that reflect item preferences of WIC participants and market availability within categories such as milk and dairy. Specifically, Congress should allow WIC participants to choose yogurt package sizes and flavor varieties that better match our current consumer preferences. Congress should also affirmatively enable all WIC participants to choose reduced fat 2% milk to ensure that pregnant women, mothers, and children redeem their milk vouchers and receive milk's nutritional benefits. Schreiber and the entire dairy industry are proud of the role we play in contributing to improved health outcomes for WIC families. Dairy products provide a number of essential nutrients and are core components of diets recommended by the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. Milk, yogurt, and cheese provide high-quality protein and 13 essential nutrients, including calcium, vitamin D, and potassium. According to the Dietary Guidelines, these nutrients are key dietary components of public health concern. The health benefits of dairy products include better bone health and lower risk of both type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. These are three critical areas of concern for WIC demographics. Unfortunately, 90% of the US population does not meet the levels of dairy consumption recommended by the DGAs. To help improve upon this nutritional issue, WIC's supplemental food package provides redemptions for milk, yogurt, and cheese. Unnecessary specifications and package restrictions, however, cause the WIC dairy program to be too restrictive. Congress should allow WIC participants to choose yogurt package sizes and flavor varieties that better match current consumer preferences. 33 states and the District of Columbia only allow WIC households to select one 32-ounce container of yogurt instead of choosing from a selection of the much more commonly sold single-serve yogurt containers, such as 4, 5.3, and 6-ounce cups. In yogurt, there are 200 plus varieties available in single serve containers compared to only 35 varieties offered in the 32-ounce size. Even the 634 million pounds sold in 32-ounce containers are only 23% of the 2.7 billion pounds sold across single serve and 32-ounce sizes together. This means that WIC participants are limited only to a fraction of the yogurt available on store shelves. As USDA reviews and updates the food package, the department should clarify that states may allow participants to use their yogurt redemption for containers that total up to 32 ounces. Congress should allow WIC participants to choose yogurt in smaller package sizes, which have more flavor options, are more popular with consumers, and are more readily available in stores. Congress should also affirmatively enable all WIC participants to choose reduced fat 2% milk. In 2014, the department took away the most popular milk variety, reduced fat 2% milk, from children older than 2, as well as pregnant and lactating women, unless the WIC participant had documented medical conditions. Limiting variety impacts access. A 2015 study found that many stores in Hispanic majority and low-income neighborhoods were less likely to carry low-fat 1% or non-fat milk. This could result in less WIC participant access to grocery stores in their neighborhoods and therefore less milk consumption by WIC families. Congress should allow all WIC participants to choose reduced fat 2% milk so that pregnant women, mothers, and children can have better access to milk's nutritional benefits. In conclusion, the more the WIC program allows the varieties and sizes that people want to buy and are widely available, the more likely eligible families will participate in WIC. During the COVID pandemic, milk variety and yogurt container size flexibilities were successfully used through waivers managed by state agencies to maintain food access for WIC participants. They allowed these participants access foods that met WIC nutritional needs and were more readily available in the supply chain and on store shelves. This allowed women, infants, and children better access to products such as yogurt and reduced fat milk, which improved our ability to provide essential ingredients and health benefits of dairy products to WIC participants. Doing this long-term seems like a logical step. Thank you again for allowing me to participate in this hearing, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell, for your testimony. And we have next Ms. Burris. Ms. Burris, you're recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Okay, thank you. Chair Bonamici, Ranking Member Fulcher, Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Fox, and members of the House Education and Labor Committee, thank you for holding today's hearing and providing me with opportunity to share my experience with WIC services. My name is Jessica Burris. I'm a mother of 3 in North Carolina, and I'm so grateful that each of my children was able to get a healthy start thanks to WIC. As a parent, I had questions that didn't always have easy answers, especially about how to change my diet while pregnant and what to feed my toddlers to make sure they grow up healthy. WIC was there for me with the answers. I have relied on the monthly benefit to purchase nutritious foods that were otherwise too costly. But WIC is more than a food benefit. The nutrition and breastfeeding support nurtures a community that helps new parents like me build healthier lives for our families. I was first pregnant when I was 14, and I had a lot of choices to make quickly. Even when with my mother and a strong community behind me, I was still immensely grateful that there was a program like WIC to support me and my growing family. WIC staff ensured that I could afford food for my daughter and help build my nutrition knowledge to successfully breastfeed, make smart choices while shopping, and cook healthy meals. Today, my oldest daughter is living and working in Charlotte, and I couldn't be prouder of how she grew up. As I was raising her, I met my husband, found work, and settled in Troy, North Carolina. When we were ready, my husband and I had 2 children. While we were more established then, and even though my daughter was on Medicaid, I didn't even imagine that we would be eligible for WIC. It was almost when my daughter was a year old before we found out through a healthcare worker that we could apply for WIC, and she referred us to a clinic. My younger children would have never received WIC support if there hadn't been a connection between WIC and Medicaid. We have to make it as easy as possible for eligible families to be connected to WIC services. Allowing for remote certifications after the pandemic is an important first step. The program's in-person requirements were a barrier to our family as we live in a small county that doesn't even have a birthing hospital. When my son and younger daughter were first certified in 2018, I had to drive 25 miles away to reach the WIC clinic. The time and distance carried a cost, as my husband and I had to balance the WIC appointments with work responsibilities and childcare arrangements. These challenges became worse during the pandemic, as I am one of the millions of American women whose work was disrupted. I am thankful that WIC waived in-person requirements starting in March 2020. I was able to recertify my children for WIC through a phone call without hassle and without exposing my family to COVID-19. I was also able to receive nutritious education through online platforms, text messages, and by phone. Because of the age difference between my children, I've been able to see how WIC has adapted over the years. With my oldest daughter, I was just starting to learn how to shop and prepare nutritious foods. Even in the 1990s, WIC encouraged healthier options and steered me away from purchasing sugary cereals for my daughter. When my younger children reconnected with WIC, I was excited to see all of the changes that moved WIC foods closer to the advice of doctors and scientists, like the addition of fruits and vegetables. I was overjoyed when North Carolina WIC announced the higher value for fruits and vegetables in June 2021. The benefit is typically only $9, which is nowhere near enough to ensure my kids have consistent access to fruits and vegetables. With the added value up to $35 per month, I'm able to make fresh, nutritious meals for my children and introduce them to new varieties of healthy foods. WIC is not just a food benefit. WIC recognizes that good nutrition is part of overall health, and through education and health screenings at clinic sites has provided my family with individualized counseling. In 2018, my local WIC clinic offered lead screenings and identified that my 3-year-old son had high levels of lead. Since my pediatrician did not screen for lead, we would have never known and sought treatment if not for WIC. After the pandemic, it's important to rethink WIC's relationship with Medicaid and doctors' offices and encourage greater collaboration. WIC has a highly effective breastfeeding peer counselor program, and I was fortunate enough to be recently hired as a peer counselor. Local WIC clinics in North Carolina partner with birthing hospitals to provide breastfeeding support at the bedside, a critical time for breastfeeding initiation. These local partnerships with WIC outside the clinic walls and connect WIC into the broader healthcare system, which reflects the reality of how families like mine receive care. I participated in WIC twice at very different parts of my life, but WIC has consistently delivered support, healthier foods, and important public health services that have significantly impacted the nutrition and well-being of my children. I thank you for considering improvements that will build on the important work of this essential program.
Thank you, Ms. Burris, and to all the witnesses for your testimony. Under Committee Rule 9A, we are now going to question the witnesses under the 5-minute rule. And I will recognize subcommittee members in seniority order. And as chair, I recognize myself for 5 minutes. So according to the USDA, as many as 30 million adults and 12 million children have not had enough nutritious food to eat during the pandemic. And at the same time, we've seen some declining rates of participation in WIC and CACFP in recent years. Ms. Burris, the WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program, FMNP, which you mentioned, is an excellent program, but we know that many WIC participants are not able to fully benefit because it is capped at $30 per participant. As a WIC participant, have you been able to receive the Farmers Market Nutrition Program benefits? And if so, what has your experience been like? And do you agree that benefits should be increased for this program?
It is not available in my county. It's available in all surrounding counties. I would love for it to be available in our county. We do have a farmers market. I think my sister has accessed this. She lives in Wake County in Raleigh, and she has had a positive experience with it. But I think it's great, and I would love for our county to have access to that.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Turner, you're witness testifying on behalf of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, A&D, as you mentioned. I want to give you a chance to respond. Mr. Farrell mentioned the A&D position paper on dairy to justify the argument for 2% milk and WIC. Can you clarify what that position paper actually says about dairy?
Thank you so much for that question, Congresswoman. I believe the document that is being referenced is the consensus statement that was created by not only the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, but also the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, the American Academy of Pediatrics, as well as the American Heart Association. The consensus statement, does in fact encourage children from 12 to 24 months to drink whole milk, and then for children older than 24 months, it recommends consuming water or milk with less fat than whole, like skim and 1%.
Thank you. And it's my understanding as well that if a child has a nutritional need, they can still get 2% if they have a doctor's prescription. Is that correct?
Absolutely, with a special diet statement for certain.
Thank you. So as I detailed in my opening statement, we've been receiving feedback from providers really since 2009 about how to improve CACFP. And I'm soon going to be reintroducing my Early Childhood Nutrition Improvement Act. This legislation will update the law to streamline paperwork requirements and incentivize care providers to return to this program, and it will support greater access to nutritious food for kids. These changes are long overdue, and I've enjoyed bipartisan support for these changes over the past several years. Importantly, under current law, CACFP only provides for up to 2 meals and 1 snack per day. So Ms. Turner, how would adding the option of a 3rd meal or snack per day help children and working families?
Thank you again. I'm a numbers person, so absolutely adding just a single meal per day, 5 days per week, all year long is 260 meals that the parent would not have to provide. That leaves peace of mind for the parents, that leaves less stress for the parents, which makes for a better household, and the child is more food secure. It doesn't just benefit us as a program, it benefits the child as an individual and the family as a whole. And I think that's really the most significant part.
And can you describe, I mean, you talked about how many children are in your care program. Are they hungry at the end of the day if they're there for a long day?
Absolutely. And there are smaller snacks that we give, but not a reimbursable snack and not a full hearty snack that could supplement that hunger.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. And I guess I want to ask Ms. Burris as well. I don't know if you've used the CACFP program, but what's your thought on whether children who are in a child care setting at the end of the day and they're still hungry, should they be able to get another meal at the end of the day through the CACFP program?
Yes, thank you. Both of my children are in a daycare. I don't know if they participate in the program, but from it sounds like that's what they have. They do get a snack after lunch. It's usually like a handful of goldfish maybe, so they are really hungry when they come home. So I do think that it would be great if that would be improved in the daycare setting.
Thank you so much. And I just want, as I begin to yield back, I just want to mention to my colleagues that I have been working on this proposal for CACFP. It has traditionally enjoyed bipartisan support. We're looking at providing that 3rd meal for the kids who stay a long day, but also streamlining, as we heard from so many, the paperwork requirements to make the administration smoother and more efficient for the care providers and families. And I see my time has expired. I want to set a good example and yield back. And now I'm going to recognize the ranking member, Mr. Fulcher, for 5 minutes for your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just as a reminder to everyone in that last exchange, Ms. Turner made the comment that adding or expanding the program would just create meals where the parents wouldn't have to provide them. That's really not true. Parents will have to provide the meals. It's just a question of which parents, because it's a taxpayer issue and we have to fund these things in some fashion. But to that end, I want to ask a question of Mr. Farrell. Food prices are up and we're all seeing it. We're all dealing with that. And we just come through a massive pandemic. We've infused a tremendous amount of money into the money supply, and that's going to have ramifications. It's called inflation. How has that impacted, from your vantage point, how has that impacted the WIC program?
Yeah, cost pressures, as you said, Representative Fulcher, they're intense right now. The last 2 years, we've seen labor, freight, and packaging increases on our business alone in the tens of millions of dollars. It's so difficult right now to find labor. It's so difficult to efficiently source the raw materials that we need. And so the dairy industry is doing everything that we can to mitigate and protect consumers from this additional cost. But to execute programs like WIC, it's only going to get tougher from a cost perspective. And so allowing the use of these programs to be less cumbersome and less restrictive will help with those cost pressures.
So as follow-up to that, I know that there are regulations or guidance, if you will, in these programs that limit WIC participants and what they can purchase in the store. What are some of the ramifications of those regulations or guidelines on the WIC program?
Yeah, I mean, again, if they can't purchase 2% milk, except for infants below 2 years old, it's just taking the most common milk item on the shelf away from a lot of WIC participants. Many stores don't have a full array of milk products, so they're not able to give the nutritional benefits because they don't have options to sell to WIC participants. Similarly, in yogurt, a lot of these neighborhoods where WIC participants live don't have the 32-ounce size of yogurt even as an option. Typically, the store shelves are smaller, a lot less space, and so just having the single serve is oftentimes the only option that a WIC participant would have. And if those items aren't on shelf, then they're not going to get the nutrition and other benefits that dairy products provide.
So you talked about the packaging, Mr. Farrell, again, I'm sorry. You talked about the packaging issue. I'm not sure I completely understood it. You mentioned a 32-ounce container, and do I understand correctly that to qualify for the program, that's the container that needs to be utilized? And is that one of those factors that could be changed, that could broaden the access to various products?
That's correct. There's some vagueness in the way that the laws are written because the states are actually implementing the rules a bit differently. But 33 states plus the District of Columbia are interpreting the rules to say only 32-ounce size. We would like to see clarification so that 32 ounces in total, with a combination of sizes as an option for consumers, be a more clear rule written into the changes you're about to make.
So I'm only got a minute left, and Mr. Farrell, I want to just close with a sales pitch for my home state. We are a major dairy producer in the state of Idaho, and so to that end, your view on the importance of dairy as part of the daily diet and why it's so important to have it included here.
Yeah, I mean, it was in my testimony, the importance of what dairy can bring to the diet. Again, milk and water were prescribed as the best beverages to have for children ages 1 to 5. We want to make that accessible. But there's so many 13 key nutrients. It helps with bone health. It reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease. There are so many public health benefits of dairy, and we want to make sure that as many WIC participants as possible get access to this.
Great. Mr. Farrell, yep. Mr. Farrell and panel members, thank you so much. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Fulcher. Next, I'm going to recognize Dr. Adams for 5 minutes for your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Representative Bonamici and Ranking Member Fulcher for holding the meeting. We know that children are our future, but how they can be our future when they do not have adequate nutrition during their formative years is really the question. The pandemic has exacerbated food insecurity for many, particularly for children, and I pointed this out over and over again, as many of you have as well. So streamlining and modernizing the application process will help alleviate the burden on those who could obtain proper nutrition through established government programs. Ms. Burris, as a fellow North Carolinian, welcome to the committee. But as a WIC participant, can you share more about your experience with shopping for WIC foods?
Thank you. My experience overall is pretty positive. The only setbacks have been not labeling in the stores, like saying what WIC foods are available, like not having proper labeling. Some stores have great labeling and some don't. That's where the benefit app comes in handy, because if you're not sure, you can scan the barcode and it tells you if it's a WIC approved item or not. I just think more advertisement in the stores, not really advertisement, but just pointing out which are the WIC approved items for parents. That's really the only thing that I could see that needs improvement. But overall, it's a good experience, and and I'm very satisfied with the foods that are available.
Right, okay, thank you. So if we had that, what you just mentioned, that identification and so forth, that would make your shopping experience better. Thank you. Ms. Turner, thank you for your service. In addition to providing nutrition education experience for children through the programs at Fort Meade, you've also worked to engage parents and caregivers. So how does providing nutrition education for parents and other family members help you achieve your goals with the program?
Thank you so much. Children need people to care for them. They also need people to guide and lead them. They're not responsible for their own food. They don't work. And so it's important that the adults in their lives that they look up to and that take care of them are able to understand healthy habits and proper nutrition so that they can pass those on to the children. Role modeling, basic nutrition education, access, how to save money while grocery shopping, how to read nutrition labels, all of that information goes to the parents and caregivers, and they're more confident and comfortable to pass that information on to the children. And
Thank
that's what
you.
they need, that guidance in their homes.
Great. Ms. Garrett, would you explain or speak to the impact that children of color experience within the Wic program, and what other measures could be taken by Congress to support all children and families?
Thank you for your question. As far as what we're doing for WIC, we provide the nutrition education and assessment and the healthy foods we need to support our families. What we've seen in the pandemic is that our participation has increased significantly because we found that families were more food insecure and that they needed this benefit. And so the waivers, especially the waiver to for remote certification and physical presence, helped to facilitate some of those barriers that our families faced. And also the waiver to allow for some flexibilities in the foods also allowed for families to receive the benefit that they were entitled to have.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell, nearly all of your testimony focused on dairy and packaging sizing. Could you speak to other important aspects of the WIC program?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, again, trying to provide nutritional benefits, it's not just dairy, but similarly, fruits and vegetables, grains. We're just trying to get nutrients to these participants. The reason dairy is a factor, again, there's a study that 90% of US citizens are not getting enough dairy in their diets. But I do think it's simply part of a balanced diet, and those other fruits and vegetables are as critically important.
Great. Ms. Garrett, I just have a few moments, but what forms of support does WIC offer new mothers?
Well, we provide especially breastfeeding support in terms of the Breastfeeding Peer Counselor Program. We also have done bedside WIC certification appointments. Now, granted, that has not happened since COVID, but we have had several of our districts who provide certification appointments right at the bedside. So the parents never leave the hospital without their WIC benefits. And then we also...
Thank you, ma'am. I'm out of time, and
Thank you, Dr. Adams.
Madam Chair, I'm going to yield back.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Next, I'm going to recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Dr. Fox from North Carolina. Dr. Fox, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you, Chair Bonamici, and thank you for our witnesses. My questions are going to be for Mr. Farrell. Mr. Farrell, the WIC program fails if we don't have industry partners in the program. To me, that means we need to ensure the program requirements do not limit the ability of those partners to meet the needs of the participants while still being able to operate their business. You've discussed a little bit with Chair Fulcher about the problems you've seen in your business. So can you react to that and discuss a little bit more about what that means that we should consider as we reauthorize the program without necessarily repeating what you told Mr. Fulcher?
Yes, thank you, Representative Fox. Nutrition programs like WIC and SNAP, they work well when they involve foods that are accessible in the market and throughout the supply chain. And problems occur when product specifications, rules and regulations limit what's readily available. And it also hurts stores trying to participate in WIC because they don't have access. So as a result, WIC participants, they're losing both accessibility to foods in stores, and they're losing access to stores altogether. We've got to get these nutritional benefits in the hands of our consumers. And the more rules and regulations we put on to that access, the harder it is to do that effectively.
Yeah, the 32 ounce example you used is very good. I sit here and listen to my colleagues talk about feeding more and more and more meals. There seems to be absolutely no sense of where the money comes from to pay for these programs. I bring up accountability in all programs all the time. It should be a major focus as we're utilizing taxpayer dollars. This is not manna from heaven that we have. So taxpayer dollars, and the American people are the most generous people in the world. They help their neighbors in need. So while I know accountability is largely the responsibility of the government, it takes all partners in our programs to help protect the integrity of our programs. Mr. Farrell, what are some accountability provisions you recommend to help ensure the WIC program is meeting its purpose without wasting precious taxpayer dollars? And I'll ask Ms. Turner and Ms. Garrett to answer that as well once Mr. Farrell completes his response. And you see I have 2 minutes, so we need fairly quick responses.
Yeah, I do think that, the responsibility for those in the industry, like the dairy industry, is to make sure that our products meet WIC standards, nutritional standards, container size requirements, etc. The more restrictions and the tougher it is for us to do that effectively and efficiently, it's just going to make access that much harder. I think accountability really falls outside of our industry, but I do agree with the things that you're saying there. To me, it's not so much about more money into the program. It's more about making it efficient and allowing these products to truly get in consumers' hands.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, a quick response, please. Where can we be more accountable to have more money?
Thank you so much. Considering it's an investment in children and an investment benefits everyone in the whole community, I think it's important that the community and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics agrees that the community contributes and is able to contribute to all of the investments of children to benefit society as a whole.
Ms. Burris. I'm sorry, Ms. Garrett. I apologize.
Thank you, Representative Fox. As a state WIC director, I am one of those individuals who is responsible for holding our budget accountable. So in reference to the 32 ounce container size, that's a state option, and we have to make sure that we are making best use of the food funds that are provided to us. So those types of decisions are the ones that we have to make. In choosing different container sizes, you also introduce increased cost into the food package that it's sometimes already exacerbated.
Okay. Mr. Farrell, go back to you for just a second. You brought up the issue of inflation. You brought up the issue of having a hard time finding labor. Nobody's mentioned farmers. I have a lot of dairy farmers in my district, and they are being killed by inflation, particularly the cost of fuel. Would you like to add anything to what you said about how inflation is impacting farmers?
Yeah, absolutely. Farmers operate on very thin margins, as you know. Everything that you said is absolutely true. It's a tough place to be right now as a farmer, and of course, we need them to be healthy and to provide great products to consumers and with participants.
Yeah, it starts right there. If we don't have them, there will be no, quote, investment, unquote, in children. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. Next, I recognize Representative Hayes for 5 minutes for your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Bonamici, and thank you to all the witnesses today for being here. The programs we are discussing are crucial to supporting new mothers and children through the early stages of childhood and setting up entire families for success. Ms. Turner, I want to thank you for your comment just now that investing in our children is investing in our communities. That is something very important to remember. Despite the program's continued success for those who utilize it, we know that in recent years, the WIC program has seen a significant decline in participants. This is especially concerning in light of the child hunger crisis that we've seen caused by COVID-19. So my question is for Ms. Garrett. In your work as a WIC state director, do you find that many families are unaware that they qualify for the program?
So thank you for your question, Representative Hayes. Yes, we find that a lot of our parents find that they are not actually eligible for the WIC program. And so we'd like to thank Congress for the passage of the $880 million that would allow for WIC modernization and outreach to actually help families to find out that they're actually eligible, and also looking at expanding adjunctive eligibility to Head Start families, and to also people who are getting CHIP, and then for the food distribution program on Indian reservations. Folks don't know that they are eligible, and that is where we're finding that we have 43% of the nation's participants who could actually benefit from the program. So putting measures in place to expand the program would be a great benefit.
Thank you. That is actually a problem that I've been working on during my time in Congress, and it actually has received bipartisan support. This month, I introduced the WIC for Kids Act with Representative Jennifer Gonzalez Colon. This legislation would expand adjunctive eligibility to include members of a family participating in SNAP, Medicaid, and TANF, and expand eligibility to those participating in Head Start, Early Head Start, the food distribution programs on Indian reservations that you just referenced, and the Children's Health Insurance Program. Our bill also extends child certification periods to 2 years and provides flexibility so families can recertify at the same time. Next question for you, Ms. Garrett, as well. I'm glad to see that you recommend expanding adjunctive eligibility to Head Start in your testimony. Can you share more about why adjunctive eligibility to this program and others would help families?
Well, families have already gone through the eligibility process for attainment or participation in those programs. And if we align our certification eligibility guidelines along with those, adjunctive eligibility means almost quote unquote automatic eligibility into the WIC program. So it makes it much easier if the families have already been determined eligible for those other programs, then they would be automatically eligible for the WIC program and can have those benefits. In the past, we have partnered with healthcare with Head Start in providing nutrition appointments, certifications, nutrition education right there in the Head Start centers, where parents can actually come, drop their children off for Head Start, take care of their WIC certification appointments and nutrition education appointments, and get their benefits and take it in one fell shot.
Thank you. I've actually seen that in my own district, in my community. We have Head Start centers that are community-based centers where there is housing, there is employment, there are just all of these wraparound services that once parents drop off their children, they can access. I'm very proud that my community has started that. I was a Head Start child myself, and all of my children went through Head Start. And like Ms. Burris, I was a young mom who accessed the WIC program. The other thing that I'm hearing a lot of, and Ms. Turner kind of touched on it, is the need for an additional snack during the day. So with the remainder of my time, Ms. Turner, can you just, if there's anything else you want to share about why that is important?
Absolutely. Thank you again for that question. Resources, everyone is not able to provide, especially with the pandemic, especially with job loss and food insecurity on a whole. Everybody's not capable of providing. And so it's important to take care of children who are not responsible for the state that they're in. They shouldn't go hungry, rather because of access.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Representative. Next, I recognize Representative Sparks. I don't know if you're here because you're not on camera. So, oh, there you are. I recognize you for 5 minutes for your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this conversation, and I think it's important conversation. But also, I look at a lot of government programs in the county, and I've noticed that they're very costly, very expensive, and not have as much value at the end that we want to try to accomplish. So definitely we have to look how we can have much more accountability and return on investment but also there are also how we can look at some of the underlying causes and what we really try to achieve to get people really to become self-sufficient, learn good healthy habits, eating habits. We really still, we talk about, having issues with obesity. We still have, a third of our children in school still have obesity issues. This is a big problem. So is there any other, as part of this program, should we, additionally to flexibility and choice, I think it will make it them more efficient and probably healthier and better for people. But Mr. Farrell, is there any other things, maybe wraparound services around and other things would be useful that we can educate mothers and, about some, maybe healthy eating habits and other things? Should we incorporate some additional things that could be useful?
I think continued education, Representative Sparks, which you've mentioned, again, dairy is an example, 13 essential nutrients, including calcium, vitamin D, and potassium, to make sure that mothers understand that that's important to their diets and the diets of their children. I think within dairy, at times, as an example, there can be myths like full fat dairy foods. Is it good for you or is it bad? And recent studies have shown that there are far more positive benefits in having full fat dairy foods. It does not have negative health outcomes like obesity, diabetes, and so we've got to educate consumers. I think that's the biggest thing. And others have talked about, how do we do a better job in store of making sure that WIC participants understand what products they can go to. I think Jessica mentioned that. I do think that that's a really positive thing that we should try to accomplish.
And maybe Ms. Garrett and Ms. Turner, you can add it. You kind of work at the state level and from research perspective, because it seems to me until we educate people to make healthy choices themselves, nothing is going to happen. How we can do a better job? I recently went to the store and look how many foods. I usually have a rule: if it's more than 5 ingredients, I'm not buying it. Okay, this is my personal rule. When I don't understand what is on the package, I am not buying it. But how we can educate people to make these healthier choices, and then I think the industry will adjust to provide healthier products. But there are a lot of. I just went to the store. I don't do much time shopping. I'm too busy, and I look like how many products are so unhealthy, and a lot of them have empty shelves, and I'm thinking, this is pretty hard to stay healthy by eating this food. So any thoughts you have, Ms. Garrett and Ms. Turner? I have a few minutes left.
Okay, well, thank you for your question. So what we do in the WIC program is that we provide immense nutrition education. That is actually the cornerstone of our program. Many people think it's providing supplemental foods, but it's actually the nutrition education that provides the cornerstone, like we said before, that gives the young children a backbone by which to stand further in life. And so we try to streamline the nutrition education to meet the families where they are. We are doing right now, everything is virtual, but prior to COVID, we were doing individual nutrition education, group nutrition educations, online nutrition education platforms to meet parents where they are so that we can ensure that they get the nutrition education without being a burden to them. And then also what we've done in creating our food labels that Ms. Burris spoke of, we call them WIC, but we call them wholesome, informed choices, which lets people know who are not receiving WIC that these choices that have been made and put on our food package are wholesome and informed choices for all individuals who are living in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So the dietitians that have looked at the food package and determined what foods need to be put on those are making sure, Congressman Sparks, that it is healthy for all individuals.
Make sure that they look at this, labels too. I need to make sure that people do look. Ms. Turner, I have only a few seconds left. Can you add something to it?
Yes, Ms. Garrett covered a lot of it, actually. Thank you so much for the question. The best part about CACFP and child nutrition programs is the education component, how it's built into the program, and you don't serve food and administer the program without adding nutrition into it from the child all the way up into the adult.
Okay, well, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Representative. I now recognize Representative Leger Fernandez for 5 minutes for your questions.
Thank you so much, Chair Bonamici, and to our witnesses for making sure that our mothers and our precious, precious little ones are receiving the nutrition they need. across this country, because of inequality and because our federal minimum wage is a poverty wage, many of our working families simply don't earn enough to provide nutritious food. And I think we need to focus on the importance of that investment, and that is indeed taxpayer money well spent. Earlier this month, Secretary Vilsack visited my district and spoke with a roundtable of nutrition experts, parents, farmers. I have an incredibly rural district with dairy farmers, all kinds, chili farmers, all kinds of farmers, and Native Americans. We discussed the importance of connecting the local farms to schools and programs like Wic, because that also supports the local supply chains, which we saw was a problem in the pandemic. But it also helps the rural economy itself, while providing families with healthy, nutritious foods, connecting them to the farmers. Ms. Garrett and others, you spoke about, the farmers market role. Can you talk about what some of those additional benefits that we might see? Connecting Wic and farmers, connecting parents and the children at farmers market to the farmers. Share a little bit more of your experience regarding that.
Okay, here in Virginia, we have the farmers market the nutrition program, and it's not as large as we would like for it to be. However, it does bring the local agriculture and our WIC participants together so that children and families can see where their food actually comes from. A lot of times at their grocery store, they just think that, food appears magically from a fairy, that they have food here in the grocery store, but actually touching and actually providing income back into local economies is what we're trying to do, in addition to providing healthy foods, letting people see this is where these foods come from. These are the individuals who are providing these foods to you, so you can actually have that connection, that community connection. I think that we should look at increasing that farmers market nutrition, that nutrition benefit to families, so that they can actually enjoy more of those fresh fruits and vegetables that come from their communities.
Right, and in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, what we have, we actually double up the value because we know that fresh food that's not done at industrial scale is both healthier but also more expensive. So I want to move on to talking about the impacts of the pandemic had on the rise in childhood obesity. In my state, by the time students reach kindergarten, 38% of American Indian students are overweight or obese. 30% of Hispanic students and 21% of white students. I know, Ms. Garrett, you shared in your written testimony that there is specific obesity prevention efforts. I'd love to hear how you think and our other witnesses in the time I have left to talk about the importance of that, of addressing those issues.
So I'll speak very briefly, ma'am. One of the things that we're also talking about in good nutrition education is how physical activity also couples with that. Even though in the pandemic we weren't able to participate together in activities, families were still able to go outside and play. And so when we talk about some of the measures that we have as far as our WIC program is concerned, we're looking to provide low-fat food options for our families that are culturally appropriate for them as well. And so making sure that you're finding foods that are culturally appropriate, that are low in fat, and then integrating the need for physical activity along with that helps to reduce the incidence of childhood obesity, and also making sure that we do not inundate our children with sugary beverages and high sugar cereals and the like.
Right. I really appreciate the focus on the cultural appropriateness. There was a lot of blue corn grown in those farms, those local farms I talked about, which is a staple in Native American Pueblos in my district. And yet there isn't an easy way to get those into the market, to get those into USDA. So we'll do that. Madam Chair, my time is about up, and so I will yield back.
Thank you very much. And I see that they are calling votes. I believe at this time I'm going to recognize Mr. Fitzgerald for 5 minutes and turn the gavel over to Representative Hayes. And then when I come back from voting, I will take back over. So Representative Fitzgerald, you're recognized for 5 minutes for your questions. Representative Hayes, you will preside until I get back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions real quick for Mr. Farrell. Being from Wisconsin, and as Mr. Falter said earlier, there's a lot of dairy in the state. And so I wanted to ask, it appears that milk consumption in some of the school programs has been declining over the last 8 years. Is there a simple fix? Like, how about flavored milk?
Yeah, for sure. That would be a simple fix that I think would really have a big impact. Representative Fitzgerald, good to be with you today. We've got a production facility in West Bend, which I know is in your district in Wisconsin. But yeah, flavored milks as an example. In 2012, when USDA removed flavored milk as well as higher fat milk varieties, consumption declined by more than 10% during the preceding 5 years. And then when low fat flavored milk returned, 58% of schools that were surveyed showed increased milk consumption. That change definitely made an impact. Flavored milk has the same nutritional benefits as regular milk. Same thing with 2% versus lower fat varieties. And so again, giving WIC participants more options, giving school programs more options is going to allow us to give them the health benefits of dairy in a bigger way.
Very good. And just one other question for you. While this hearing is about WIC and CACFP, I wanted to ask about sodium in the school meal programs, and what concerns do you have at all, if any? Target 3 of the sodium requirements, it could be instituted, and there seems to be some concerns around that.
Yeah, major concerns. The dairy industry is continuously making products as healthy as possible for consumers, and that includes sodium reduction. It's been a big initiative across our industry. But the Target 3 sodium limits being proposed for school meals, it's just beyond technological and food safety limits. It's going to actually increase risk in consumers, and I don't think we want to do that. Salt serves a functional and food safety purpose in the manufacturing process and in the products, even as they're on store shelves. It affects fermentation, which helps us prevent the growth of pathogens. So I do think that Target 3 sodium limits could drastically reduce or eliminate cheese in school meals. I don't think that's a good thing, and so I think we need to just make sure that we fully understand the impacts.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here today. And Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you for your questions. I now recognize Representative Mervan. You have 5 minutes for your questions.
Thank you, Chairwoman. At this time, first I want to start off by saying I represent Northwest Indiana, Lake County. Prior to this, for 15 years, I worked in serving as an elected official of the most vulnerable populations. My county of Lake County had 10.5 deaths per 1,000 when it came to infant mortality. With that, we talked about, or I heard, return on investment. There was a study in the Journal of American Medical Association that came out in December 6th that found that babies born to WIC participation in vulnerable communities are 33% less likely to die in the first year of life. That to me is a great return on our investment in prioritizing. And so I know that WIC, along with other collaborative partners, made a major impact in infant mortality in my county. And I just want to express that to you and Ms. Turner, all that you do for the most vulnerable populations. My question today is, this committee provided nearly $400 million for outreach and program modernization work in WIC to try to recruit and retain more participants for this important program. Ms. Garrett, why is it important for the USDA and Congress to be focused on increasing recruitment and retention in WIC?
Well, thank you for your question, sir. The fact that you just mentioned the return on the investment with your community in itself, and that you saw that there was according to the report that you just read, there's a 33% reduction in infant deaths is why we need to expand in the outreach for the WIC program It also is used to, help to retain those people that are already on the program, to show them the benefits for those who are not on the program, and to retain those that are on the program, the benefits that the program can provide to them. Not only is it about the supplemental food, but it's also about the nutrition education. It's also about the assessments. It's also about the referrals. A lot of times, WIC is the first point of entry into healthcare for a lot of our participants. And so this is where we're able to catch a lot of those issues that would potentially present themselves as problems for our families later on in life. And so this money that is being provided for us, this funding, would then help to expand that and also help to streamline the program that we have. We're always looking to modernize our program. As you've seen in the pandemic, we've had to make a lot of changes very quickly to make our program relevant as we move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. And as I talked about, as an administrator of emergency assistance, we participated in making sure we saw 3,500 people a year, and those families were required, or not required, but were encouraged to look into the WIC program to change those statistics of childhood development outcomes, and also, as we talked about, the infant mortality. My second question, and I just want to say that was a coordinated effort to make sure that we kept recruiting and talking about it and uplifting the benefits of the WIC program. In addition to nutritional support and breastfeeding counseling, WIC participants receive health and immunization screenings. Ms. Burris, could you speak to the impact of these screenings in your community, especially the tests that may not always be conducted by a physician, such as blood lead tests?
Thank you. So I had a personal experience. My son, when he was 3, we had just entered into WIC, and he got his lead and his iron tests, and it came back high in lead. I would have never known because his normal pediatrician visits never tested for lead. So we had to go to the pediatrician and do 3 follow-ups to see his lead levels drop. And we figured out what it was, but we would have never known. And even when I first, I was on WIC for like a month when my daughter joined, because I was an exclusively breastfeeding mom. Well, I didn't realize that my iron was low. They had to check my iron. So just things like that, it made such a big difference, and it made me feel good that that was there, because otherwise I wouldn't have known.
Thank you, Ms. Burris. In closing, I just want to say I've worked firsthand in this issue and making sure that the most vulnerable populations had access to food. The impact that it has with outcomes that studies show that children who are eating nutrition meals have value, and also reducing the infant mortality, is something that one of the reasons why I'm here in Congress is to make sure that we advocate for that. So going forward, I just want to thank all the advocates who are doing what they can on a daily basis to make sure that people have access to this program. With that, I yield back.
Thank you so much, Representative Mervan. Our next member should come from the Republican side. Representative McLean, are you available for questioning? Okay, so I'll go to our next Democrat witness, who is Representative Bowman. Please unmute and ask your questions for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Am I unmuted? Yes, I think I am. Yes, thank you. Ms. Turner, thank you so much for your testimony today. Your work serving military families as a nutritionist for the Army, and also your work as president of the Maryland Academy of Nutrition and Dialectics, excuse me. Less than a year ago, I was a principal for a middle school in the Bronx, and providing after-school programming for our students was a critical part of serving students and the community. Providing a safe, nurturing, and enriching place for students to be outside of regular school hours is a major priority I hear about from my constituents, especially in terms of protecting our youth from exposure to high rates of violence. You know from your work that no matter how high quality a program is in terms of enrichment offerings, if a child is hungry, everything else is secondary. For many children in my district, the food they get from an after-school program might be the most nutritious source of food they'll get before the following day at school through their school breakfast program. In addition to needing more out of school time programs overall, we need these programs to all be able to offer nutritious foods to the students they serve. What kind of barriers do after school programs, after school or out of school time programs face in accessing CACFP? How can we best alleviate these barriers?
Hi, thank you so much for your question. Um, some of it is knowledge about the program, not knowing how to get into the program, the paperwork barriers, the verification barriers that I spoke of in my testimony, to make it not as difficult and not as cumbersome for on both the side of the program and the side of the child and family, so that it eases into the program and able to receive the food.
Awesome. As you know, Ms. Turner, COVID-19's harmful economic toll on families led to a spike in food insecurity. Because so much of this past year has been remote for students, we don't have complete nor immediate visibility into child hunger that could emerge suddenly. That means a student and their family experiencing hunger can easily experience it in isolation and without being connected to programs and resources to address this need immediately. The next school year is just around the corner. What are your thoughts on the need for tracking student hunger on a continuous basis? And how could the way we administer the CACFP program help in that important effort?
Thank you so much. The main aspect of technical assistance and nutrition education as a way to reach people and to way to inform them about what is available is helpful, as well as you mentioned, tracking could be a part of that to connect the two and bridge the gap between what is missing.
How can we support coordination and collaboration at the local and federal levels between child nutrition programs and schools, after school programs, and child care settings? Do you have examples of that anywhere in the country where it's working really well?
At this time, there's not a specific example, but I can certainly get back to you if you would allow me to.
Well, I appreciate that. Absolutely. My office will be in touch, and thank you for your testimony. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Bowman. Again, Representative McLean, are you available for your questions? Okay, the next representative on the Democrat side is Representative Infume. Okay, I'm not really sure what other members are available, so we're going to take a brief recess. There's votes going on right now, so that has something to do with it. So we'll take a brief recess and be back momentarily.
women's pregnancies. And so what we're doing is that we, periodically we are doing health checks on our pregnant women. We do weight checks. We are making sure that they are eating properly. They're eating to feed two. We're also ensuring that many of the women are getting tested for gestational diabetes. And so we're ensuring that a lot of the milestones and that one that is pregnant would also meet, we're also following up on them. So ensuring that these women are healthy going into their pregnancy, a lot of times will help to reduce low birth weight babies, and will also help to deter and bring down the incidence of maternal mortality and morbidity by providing these women the nutrients that they need in order to have a successful and healthy pregnancy.
And do you also reduce remedial education costs? Is that a cost savings too by investments in WIC?
A lot of times it is, because like I said, we're providing for children the nutrients they need in order to start off on a healthy setting and a healthy foot, and also making sure that the nutrition that they receive is appropriate for their development at that point.
Thank you. Now, you offer services that you normally require to be in person that you're offering remotely. What services are we talking about?
So currently we're doing our certification appointments remotely. So those will be the ones that families present themselves in which they would have a full certification visit with anthropometric measurements taken, nutrition assessment done, nutrition education done. Those are done virtually. So either by video or by phone, and then also nutrition education is being presented to families through video and phone conversations as well.
And do you lose very much by doing it remotely?
Actually, we've increased by doing it remotely because it's done at a convenience of the parent and the family.
Okay. And how can we make it easier to participate in WIC?
Well, some of the things that we can streamline is looking at our certification requirements, looking at the time that is necessary, and then to conduct an assessment appointment, and then look at how we can continue to have these relaxed physical presence requirements as moving forward through WIC.
Okay. Mrs. Turner, can you talk about the importance of combining summer and after-school meals with education programming?
Absolutely. When children learn all together and things aren't siphoned, they're able to absorb the knowledge pretty well. If you mix nutrition education with the other education they receive, with their favorite things, with colors and movies that they watch, that they're able to recall this information and utilize it later to make healthier decisions.
And how do you help their families as well as the mother and child? How do you help the whole family?
Something we like to call learning up, especially when you teach young children, they're very excited about the things they learn. So they can't wait to get home and talk to their brothers and sisters and parents and grandparents about the new fruits and vegetables they tried, about what a whole grain is. And you'd be surprised that older people will learn totally new things that they might not have discovered before through the eyes of their children.
Well, good. Thank you so much. And thank you, Madam Chair, for the accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Scott. And it appears that there are no further members to ask questions, so pursuant to committee practice. Materials for submission to the hearing record must be submitted to the committee clerk within 14 days following the last day of the hearing, so by close of business on August 11th, preferably in Microsoft Word format. Only a member of the subcommittee or invited witness may submit materials for inclusion in the hearing record, and the materials must address the subject matter of the hearing. Please submit materials to the committee clerk electronically by emailing submissions to edandlabor.hearings@mail.house.gov. Again, I want to thank all of the witnesses for your participation today. Members of the subcommittee may have some additional questions for you, and we ask you please respond to those questions in writing. The hearing record will be held open for 14 days to receive those responses. And I remind my colleagues that pursuant to committee practice, witness questions for the hearing record must be submitted to the majority committee staff or committee clerk within 7 days. The questions submitted must address the subject matter of the hearing. And I now recognize the distinguished ranking member, Mr. Fulcher, for a closing statement.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you to those who testified. You know, we have this tendency as members of Congress, to throw money at problems, and sometimes that's just necessary. And I think all of us agree the importance of these programs and the importance of having strong nutritional value and just making that available to those who are vulnerable. And so we're in significant agreement on that. Where we disagree probably has to do with some of the access questions, what may be available in terms of dairy, of course. We've talked about that a lot. And just the expansion and the necessity as to whether or not we're smarter in expanding the existing programs, or if it's wise to allow private and public to re-engage and take more of a responsibility when it comes to running these programs. So on the Republican side, at least from my standpoint, it's trying to be mindful of being wise stewards as taxpayers and making that available and leveraging our private entities and our partnerships in this effort. But Madam Chair, it's educational, and I thank you for your efforts. And I thank those who took their time to testify for us today. Please know that you're appreciated. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Fulcher. I now recognize myself for purpose of making a closing statement. Thank you so much to the witnesses for sharing your expertise and your stories. Today, we focused on the efforts in Congress to address childhood hunger, as well as our responsibility and opportunity to meet the needs of children and families through federal nutrition programs, including WIC and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. And from my perspective, we have established not only in this subcommittee hearing, but over the years, that these dollars spent are a good investment. Children are our future. Our families are so important. These programs are designed to give young children a healthy start in life and expand access to nutrition services for families. And thank you again to the witnesses for explaining why that's important. Unfortunately, as our witnesses made clear, the pandemic caused an already alarming child hunger crisis to surge. The American Rescue Plan has helped to reduce rates of food insecurity, but too many Americans, especially people of color, are still experiencing food insufficiency. The ongoing needs in our communities across the country is why we must pass key proposals in the American Families Plan as well, and permanently reauthorize child nutrition programs. And as I said at the start of the hearing, our work remains unfinished until every child, infant, and family has access to the basic nutrition they need for a strong start in life. I look forward to working with all of my colleagues to finally make that aspiration a reality. And thank you again to everyone for a productive hearing. If there's no further business, without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned. Thank you again, everyone.